Jason Parker had always been a hard worker. As a financial analyst in New York City, his life revolved around numbers, deadlines, and constant pressure. He had spent years climbing the corporate ladder, earning the respect of his colleagues and the admiration of his bosses. But beneath the polished exterior, Jason was drowning in stress. It started subtly: occasional headaches, restless nights, and a lingering sense of unease. But as months passed, his stress manifested in more severe ways. He lost his appetite, his patience wore thin, and he began experiencing panic attacks. He would wake up in the middle of the night, his chest tight, his breathing shallow. At work, he struggled to concentrate, his mind clouded by anxiety. One evening, Jason sat in his dimly lit apartment, staring at a half-eaten meal. His phone buzzed, another email from his boss, marked urgent. He felt his pulse quicken. He clenched his fists, trying to suppress the rising anxiety. This wasn't sustainable. He knew he had to make a change, but the thought of stepping back terrified him. He had worked too hard to get here. The final straw came during an important client presentation. Jason had spent weeks preparing, ensuring every detail was perfect. But as he stood before the executives, his vision blurred, his hands trembled, and suddenly, he couldn't breathe. His throat tightened, his heart pounded, and the room seemed to close in on him. He stumbled out of the conference room, gasping for air. His colleague, Mark, found him in the hallway, pale and shaken.
"Jason, you okay?"
Mark asked, concern etched on his face.
I don't know.
Jason admitted. His voice was barely a whisper. Mark nodded knowingly.
You've been pushing yourself too hard. Maybe it's time to take a step back.
The idea of slowing down felt foreign, almost impossible. But deep down, Jason knew Mark was right. That evening, Jason made a decision: he needed help. He scheduled an appointment with Dr. Reynolds, a therapist who specialized in stress and anxiety management. Sitting in Dr. Reynolds' office a few days later, Jason felt exposed, vulnerable.
"I don't know how to stop,"
he admitted.
"I've been working so hard for so long. If I slow down, I might fall behind."
Dr. Reynolds studied him for a moment.
"Jason, stress isn't a sign of weakness, but ignoring it is. Your body is telling you something, you need to listen."
She encouraged him to identify the root causes of his stress. It wasn't just his workload, it was his fear of failure, his relentless pursuit of perfection, and his belief that his worth was tied to his success. With Dr. Reynolds' guidance, Jason began making small changes. He started by defining clear work boundaries. No more answering emails after 7 p.m. No more working on weekends. At first, it felt unnatural, almost reckless. But over time, he realized that the world didn't fall apart when he took time for himself. Dr. Reynolds introduced Jason to mindfulness. Every morning, he set aside 10 minutes for deep breathing exercises. He learned to focus on the present instead of worrying about the future. Slowly, his panic attacks decreased. Jason had neglected his physical health for years. Now, he committed to a routine: morning jogs, healthy meals, and proper sleep. The change was almost immediate. His energy levels improved, and his mind felt clearer. For years, Jason's identity had been wrapped up in his career. But now, he rediscovered old passions: reading, playing guitar, and even trying his hand at painting. These small joys reminded him that life was more than spreadsheets and deadlines. Months passed, and Jason noticed a shift. The tension in his shoulders eased. His thoughts became less chaotic. He still had stressful days, but he no longer let them consume him. One evening, he received an email from his boss about an urgent report. Instinctively, his heart raced. But then he took a deep breath. Reminding himself of his boundaries, he replied,
"I'll take care of it first thing in the morning."
Then, he closed his laptop and went for a walk. The city lights twinkled around him, and for the first time in years, he felt truly present. Jason didn't quit his job. He didn't escape to a remote island, but he learned to manage.